Man, this video is absolutely insane. Is this the stupidest man alive? Like, I don't know what's stupider. The fact that bro is driving with his knee, no hands on the wheel, holding rocks, copper, and tools, so if the airbag goes off, they're gonna go in his face. Distracted on the highway or interstate, the fact that he posted that video on social media, or the fact that he thinks he needs to defend it with ego and all these bullshit excuses. And then when you check the comments of that post, all it is his egotistical, arrogant, and ignorant excuses, justifying it with shitty excuses like, I'm a dad and I have experience, or even more egotistical ones, where he's not using logic, he's just saying, oh yeah, I do this, so it's okay. So in this video, we're going to be doing a deep dive on this video and this creator, calling him out for his reckless actions, endangering himself, his passenger, and everybody else on the road. We'll go over the comments and our DMs, because I direct message him, and then I also asked Google Gemini, what are the consequences for this, in terms of like getting a ticket or going to jail, with different factors like if he crashed and there weren't fatalities, if there were, and how it could change or affect his life or the people around him, right? But before we get into that, hey, I'm Aqua or Aquarius of Fallen Snow if you don't know me. Welcome to my channel if this is your first time here. Welcome back if you've been here before. Happy to have you back. So yeah, in this video we're going to be looking at the creator, Carbonated 333, otherwise known as Turk or Turquoise. When I came across one of the pages that I've been following for a little bit now, I'm not really too active on his page, but I was interested in seeing what he created and what he was making. And then I came across this video where bro's driving distracted, and I went to the comments and there was no logic. It was all ego and him making excuses for his actions rather than actually taking accountability and acknowledging his mistakes, right? But that's why I wanted to make this video calling him out, because maybe then he and other people will see the error in their ways, you know, as well as the fact that I think it's kind of amusing. Like, I think it's kind of funny how ironic this video and the comments in it are compared to his other content, where he's talking about love and abundance, all these good things. But now, after seeing that video and how he talks to people who are coming at him with differing opinions, it makes me wonder if everything I saw before was just a facade and that's not truly how he is, or it's one of those things where social media only shows the best parts of people, and this is one of those times where he showed maybe not the best part of himself, but instead of realizing it might not have been the best idea to post it, he doubles and triples down on it, which I think is absolutely hilarious and crazy. Let me pull up the video and let's just take a look at the first screen we see. So this guy is sitting in his car using his knee to steer, no seatbelt, no hands on the wheel, with, like I said before, metal tools, rocks, and copper in his hands. And the first thing I thought when I saw this video is, oh damn, if he taps somebody's back end or he gets rear-ended, I bet his airbag would go off and blow those tools right into his fucking face. And I'm sorry if that's a little like dark Final Destination-y, but is that not a genuine concern? That's why people say don't put shit on your steering wheel. Like, I've seen people with like rocks or gems glued onto their steering wheel, and if the airbag goes off, you essentially made a fucking pipe bomb. Like, but let's keep going. We see in the video as the camera turns that he's on what looks like the freeway or the highway because of how open it is, and I think what's going on the left is them clearing the trees between the lanes or the sides of the highway. And that actually is pretty common in the States. When I went down there as a kid with my parents for a vacation, that was one thing I noticed, where in Canada we put the lanes right next to each other with like a cement divider, but then in the States they do like 2 lanes separated by like 30 feet of grass or something like that. Sometimes there's trees, but then a lot of the time it's just flat open space between them, and that never really made sense to me, right? So with that information, he's probably going anywhere from 60, 70 to 100 kilometers per hour, right? Kilometers, because I'm Canadian. And the fact that he's not even holding the wheel with one hand implies that if somebody swerved over in front of him, or if he needed to get out of the way of something, like there was something on the road and he needed to swerve out of the way himself, does that not drastically reduce your reaction time and your ability to avoid an accident, right? So just the video itself is absolutely insane, and I had a number of thoughts right when I saw it, but then I went to the comments to see if other people had the same feelings as me, and they obviously did. Well, and of course, the first one that he pinned to the top says, most of y'all text and drive. Cut it out, he's just real enough to show it. Which I replied, no, stop making excuses for this shit. If you text and drive, you're just as much of a waste of life piece of shit. Somebody else asked, why post this, love? Respectfully, it's broadcasting negligence, which I 100% agree with. And he replied to that person with, it's simple transparency and a little comedy. I drive like this all the time and have a clean record. So you can see already he's making excuses. Somebody said, me this morning, and he was laughing saying, I know everybody does it, which they don't. That's cognitive bias and ego. Somebody else here said there should be a disclaimer, and he just said, lol, what would it say? Bro's so ignorant and egotistical, he doesn't even understand what's wrong with what he's doing. Somebody else here said, hopefully not with the kids, G. Don't matter how good you are, can't control how other people drive. Facts, right? And he said, no, there's usually no one in the car, but he took advantage of the opportunity for some content, which, okay, it's one thing if you want to do it when you're alone in the car, when nobody else is around you on the road, when you're alone in the car and there are people around, and then doing it when there are other people in the car with you. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think there is one of those options. Like, maybe the first one would be the best, but it's still stupid as fuck. Like, you're just risking your own life, right? If there's nobody else around. Someone said multi-dimensional, and he replied with, they don't get it. Oh no, we don't understand, man. You're so much more advanced than us. Like, this person said, this is just irresponsible, homie, respectfully. And he replies with, clean record for the last 4 years. Like, okay, big whoop. Death only takes seconds, and that is something you have to remember, right? Carbonated so used to the astrals he ain't worried about staying there. And he replied, I don't even dream laughing my ass off, I stay present. So he probably smokes a lot of weed, like, if he's not dreaming, because that's something that happened to me from smoking a lot of weed as you stop dreaming. Somebody here said, I think everyone here genuinely is concerned for your safety and others around you. You should ask yourself one question. What would my higher self suggest for me? You will have your answer. And he replied with, I appreciate your genuineness. However, everyone else is being judgmental. I'm very in tune with myself. I trust myself more than I trust anybody that I don't know. Like... And these are all other people's comments, because now I'm going to get to what I was saying, because nobody's really hitting on, like, a few people are hitting on the idea, but nobody's really going in depth with it, right? Nobody's really trying to call this guy out on his shit, but here, I'll go into it right now. So, I commented saying next vid, he gonna be ripping a line while cutting rocks saying it's casual. But for real, why risk your safety, your passenger safety, and others around you for the sake of business or content? Like, for real, how you gonna keep making jewelry if you have a Doctor Strange type accident and can't use your hands again, or at least not for time and hours of physio? Doesn't seem like it comes from love, but to each their own, I guess. He replied with, I don't live a what-if life, and you're right, it's not from love. It's consistency as far as my jewelry. I literally do it everywhere, as you can see. Transparency to my followers. I've driven like this all my life. I don't just show what I think people will like. So he thinks that transparency means posting yourself committing a crime on social media and then using your ego to try and justify it. That's crazy. So I replied saying, you're missing the fucking point. Hope you crash and learn a lesson. Loved one. Check your ego before trying to flex, lil ass boy. The only thing that you're showing is how much of an ignorant, egotistical, arrogant, and ignorant again, because I guess I wasn't rereading, point of view and actions justified by narcissism and experience. Like, shut the fuck up. This shit is hilariously ironic based on your profile, but I guess everyone a fake ass bitch these days for socials. Stop trying to act cool for some people you don't know and will never meet. Because personally, that's what I feel like he is doing. Going to somebody else's comment now, they said this is just careless. Carbonated replied, it's just transparency. I've driven like this all my life, which isn't a good reason or excuse. And somebody replied to that, so you've driven carelessly all your life. He says not careless intentional. Not careless intentional, so he's intentionally committing crimes for his whole 4 years of driving, I guess, like. And somebody says, yeah, you're motivating people to drive recklessly until your life suddenly ends along with others' lives involved in the crash. Get a self-driving car, which, yeah, that's a good idea, Tesla, yeah. And then he replied to that person saying self-driving cars have had many malfunctions leading to lethal accidents. So he understands that accidents can happen and they can be lethal, but he doesn't think it could be him or it could happen to him. That's fucking insane. I didn't see that before. Somebody else said, so you don't live in a world, but you sure do live in one full of excuses. Facts. And he says, you're a spectator, bro. Why do you follow me? It's like, well, you weren't posting that shit before. And then I had to reply to that, and I said, yep, what a great reason, lol. And he said, it's funny when spectators all of a sudden have something to say. In my opinion, it's funny when creators all of a sudden post some whack content. I replied to him saying, you are a child in a man's body, grow up, you waste of life, or, do something actually useful with it. And he said, you keep mentioning drugs, so I know what you do in your downtime. I'm fully self-sufficient, live off-grid, and delivered my child myself. They are healthier than you. Go get ready for your 9 to 5. You don't know what grown is if you lived in a box? Don't understand that, but yeah, definitely, so he's trying to justify his actions with saying, oh, I'm so grown, I'm self-sufficient, I have a kid, all this other shit. If you have a kid, why the fuck are you posting this dog shit example of how to live your life? I know I say fuck the gov and the 1% that's funding, but these are laws that are put in place to fucking save people and keep people safe. If it's to do with money and taxes and whatever bureaucracy, that's different. But if it's about keeping people safe, it's pretty fucking basic, man. I have my driver's license, I don't have a car, but I told myself, when I get a car, I'm gonna be the best fucking driver. And I don't want anybody to ever be worried riding in my car that I am unsafe. Gonna have my hands on the wheel, going the speed limit or a tiny bit over, just chilling, man. Why the fuck do you have to go and do this extra shit? It's so stupid. And I say that because I have been in cars with people where I have felt like I'm gonna fucking die. And I don't want to feel that again or have anybody else feel that, right? So I replied to his drugs and 9 to 5 comment. Damn, imagine thinking I'm on drugs when I've been Cali sober for 3 to 4 years now, and you posted vids of distracting driving as a fucking dad? In my opinion, being a dad that does shit like this and posts it on social media is almost as bad as just leaving when they're born. What the fuck kind of logic you use? Oh wait, you obviously don't. The person from before said, I follow you from a while back because I resonated with one of your posts until I came across this post. You post some good things, obviously. And then that same person said, put yourself on a pedestal and act like you're above all, which I agree with. And he decided to respond to that. And he said, exactly, so stop tripping over one post. Nobody does everything the way you like. That's my whole point. I knew a bunch of judgment would come. I would next comment how I feel if I'm not asked. I mind my business. If I don't agree, I move on. So he's basically telling people to shut the fuck up if they don't like what he's doing, which is crazy. Do you get the sense of entitlement and ego that I was seeing? Holy shit. He's saying, yeah, it's simple. Unfollow me or appreciate what resonates and disagree with what doesn't. You see, I only follow people I can value. I can value real life, cuz you put me on a pedestal, my feet are on the same ground as yours. Y'all just judgment. I'm not opinionated. Obviously, he was cheesing because he was typing too quick and not reading his shit, but I'm sure he got heated at my comments where I'm using fucking logic instead of just ego. But then I had to take this shit a little bit further. And I DM'd him. And obviously I unfollowed him. Jesus Christ. So I reposted the video of him driving, the original video of him driving. Said, stupidest video I seen in a min. Peep the comments for his dogshit excuses. Hope the airbags blow and bro stabs himself in the head. And I genuinely mean that, because if you're too egotistical and ignorant to understand the problem in your ways, maybe God or the universe is going to teach you a lesson that is going to alter your life or other people's lives forever, so that it really sinks in. You know what I mean? And I was basically trying to give him a visual of what a worst case scenario could be. Not even talking about charges, going to court or jail or anything, just physical injury caused by what he's doing in the moment. You know, he replied to my story and said, what you speak comes back, probably how you will leave this world abundant. Like I said, considering I don't have a car and I would never do some dumb shit like this, it would never fucking happen to me. So that's even... And who knows, maybe it's some final destination karma that happens to me, and I get fucking tools going through my windshield hitting me in the face when I do get a car and start driving. But at the end of the day, maybe that's my time to go then. I replied to that message and I said, I've been wanting to die, bro. I don't give a fuck. When I'm gone, my art and message gonna be immortalized. All you gonna leave is some rocks and copper. Pussy. You basically a ballin' crackhead. Check yourself. Because at the end of the day, yeah, that's basically all he is. Which I still think is pretty funny and accurate. But then I sent him a few of my own posts, and I said pussy ass little boy, because I'm showing him the message that I'm trying to put in my content, and trying to, like, I can't even describe it, how I'm trying to live my life, but also help people do better and live their lives, not just posting some ignorant, egotistical shit, and then making excuses for it, right? I'll show this. You can see he tried to call me, and then he sent me a voice message. So let's go through what he said in the voice message. I figured you wouldn't answer, bro. I ain't gonna lie, man, you probably got a lot of shit going on in your life. Shit been hectic. I feel you. Bro, at the end of the day, how you live your life is for you. If you ready to die, then go. The hell? I've been living my life amazingly. Like I said, bro, people going to do what they want. So just because somebody don't value your opinion, like, you literally tight, upset, mad because I'm not. I don't care about what you saying. You feel me? Stop using your fingers so much. You just keep typing and writing. If you really want to talk, call me, bro. I'm a real person. I'm going to give you real life. Not some depiction of life that you want to live in, bro. I don't live no life for nobody else but myself and my family. Ironic. And all my kids is taken care of. I'm in their life. I don't want to work. I don't work a job. My wife is free of work. We do for ourselves. We live free. We eat free. The hell? I don't pay no bills. We enjoying life to the fullest. And you worry about me driving with my knee for what? 6 seconds? 8 seconds? He really doesn't fucking get it, eh? The fact that he's bringing up all this other shit shows how he's trying to deflect and get away from the main point, right? So, I replied saying, stop trying to play holier than thou. It just makes you look like even more of a piece of shit. I don't give a fuck about you or anything you got to say. I'm just showing you I've been doing more and putting out better messages. Maybe you could learn something, ignorant bitch. I'm just being me. I don't need to defend dogshit actions. Like I said, hope you crash, the airbag blow, and you stab yourself in the head with your tools, then how good of a dad you gonna be to your kids? Fucking retard. Bro, your connection's ass, because he went live, and I hopped in and I called him a waste of life, and I said, his connection's ass. So I said, bro, your connection's ass. Maybe you should hop off live, take down the vid of you committing a crime, fix your dogshit internet, and mature a bit, eh? I said again, I messaged again, exactly why I said you're a fucking child in a man's body. I'm a fucking anti-hero. I don't need to play no holier than thou role when I can just call out waste of life like you for bullshit like what you posted. And then I took a picture of our DMs, what I said to him, and I posted that on my story, and I added him. And I said, what you got to say since I came at your ego with logic? If you're a real man like you claim, take accountability. And then bro had nothing left to say. I found a post that I've seen before where the person said, I used to have this mental illness where I thought logical arguments would change somebody's mind. And I added bro, I said laughing my fucking ass off at carbonated_333. And he sent laughing emojis. And I said, keep laughing, clown. I'm laughing at you, not with you. And he's seen it, but he didn't reply. Of course, because an ignorant, egotistical pussy like that doesn't have anything to say except for deflect and get off of the main topic because he knows he's in the wrong. He's just trying to make excuses for it. Oh, but this guy's a dad that doesn't work and he's been driving like this all his life and he has 44,500 subscribers. Congrats. But does he not realize the irony and the ignorance of the actions and then how he goes about trying to make up for it or justify the actions? This is absolutely mind-blowing, but this is why I have to call this shit out, because people don't use logic, common sense, problem-solving skills. Motherfuckers are living their life, but then they justify it. But then they try to make excuses to justify it rather than looking at it objectively and going, oh, well, is that really the best thing I could be doing right now? Bro, this guy is fucking... But I don't know, maybe this is the ego you get when all you do is put rocks and copper together and you sell it for $800 to $1,000 a piece. Bro, that's literally crackhead shit. Oh, but I'm the one that's on drugs, even though I've been fucking Cali sober for... And you see how these people have to go oh, well, you're talking about drugs, so you must do drugs. Yeah, I did drugs, I had the experience of doing drugs, but then I smartened up and matured a little bit. Something I would also be interested in is knowing how old that guy is, because I'm only 23, bro. I'm 23, I don't have a kid, I don't have a car, but I'm still seemingly more mature than this piece of shit. Even if this was somebody I knew in real life that wasn't on social media and I was calling out their bullshit like I have recently. Or it is on social media and something pops up on my feed and I go, this isn't right. We should try and fix this. But people don't want to solve problems. They just want to do whatever the fuck. That being said, let's hop over to Google Gemini, who can tell us about the charges that mans could receive for doing this crime, right? So let's go into the thread and see what it has to say. So I was basically describing the video I saw, we went over earlier in this video. The behavior described in this Instagram video would likely lead to charges of reckless driving and distracted driving in the US, along with seatbelt violation. The specific penalties may vary by state, but there's a general breakdown of what he could face. Recklessly driving typically involves operating a vehicle with willful or wanton disregard for safety of persons or property, which he's obviously showing. Driving with his knee, no seatbelt, and hands occupied with jewelry making clearly fits the description. In most states, reckless driving is a misdemeanor, but it can be elevated to a felony if it results in serious bodily injury or death, or if there is a prior conviction. Jail time, he'd be looking at up to a year, maybe a few months if that's his first offense. Fines, commonly 1,000 or more. License suspension or revocation, which I'm sure he would care about that if he can't drive anymore. But, with his ego, I'm sure he would still drive anyway, so what does a license matter, right? Driver's license would almost certainly be suspended or revoked for a period. This would lead to higher insurance rates, increased penalties, So then, yeah, distracted driving laws vary but generally prohibits activities that divert attention from the road, right? Penalties here: seatbelt violation. This is typically a lesser offense, usually resulting in a fine, but it adds to the overall charges and demonstrates a disregard for safety. And now, aggravating factors or potential for felony charges. The described actions demonstrate an extreme level of disregard for safety. If this behavior were to result in an accident, especially one causing injury or death, that man would almost certainly face felony charges. So felony reckless driving or aggravated reckless driving can carry sentences of 1 year or more, potentially several years, depending on the state and the severity of the resulting harm. For example, some states specify up to 5 years in prison if serious bodily injury results, and fines could then get up to the thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. In summary, without knowing the specific state this occurred, whether any accident or injury resulted, it's impossible to give an exact number of years in jail. However, he would likely face multiple charges, including reckless driving and distracted driving. For first offense without injury, he could be looking at jail sentencing ranging from a few days to a year, along with significant fines and license suspension. If serious injury or death results, he would almost certainly face felony charges with potential prison time of several years. This is like best case scenario, getting pulled over by a cop with no injury happening. You know what I mean? So if we keep going here, I said he was also on a highway or interstate. Does that change things or make it worse? And it's obviously yes. The fact that he was on a highway or interstate would absolutely make the situation worse and likely lead to more severe penalties if he were caught and convicted. Here's why. Increased danger and risk, aggravating factors for reckless driving, and I'll kind of let you guys pause if you want to read through it. Potential for aggravated reckless driving or felony charges if high speed is involved, risk to multiple people, or serious injury or death occurs, right? In essence, the location acts as a significant aggravating factor for the reckless driving and distracted driving offenses. Maximum end of misdemeanor jail time: instead of a few days or weeks, he's much more likely to face several months or up to a year. Significantly larger monetary penalties, longer license suspension or revocation, potentially up to years, and then a strong possibility of facing felony charges if any harm had occurred. And obviously we don't want harm to occur, but that's why I'm making this content, to hopefully, have him see the light or realize his actions are fucking stupid, right? So then I kept going and I laid out some possibilities. What would the penalties be if a cop drove past and saw him doing this, then pulled him over? We basically talked about that already. Let's also say this resulted in a crash, but only he was harmed because of the airbags and the tools. Finally, what would the difference between more strict states and lenient states be like? Also, would there be a difference between northern and southern states? First scenario, if he was pulled over by a cop, no accident, that's basically what we talked about before. And these are the penalties, general ranges. Scenario 2, which if a crash occurs and only he is harmed, there would still be the charges of reckless driving, distracted driving, and seatbelt violations. Jail time would be much more likely and potentially longer. Fines significantly higher, which is ironic because then you also have to pay your medical bills. Even longer suspension or revocation, higher insurance, and potential civil liability. And it says the U.S. legal system varies widely by states. Stricter states may have broader definitions of reckless driving, more likely to have mandatory minimal jail sentences or fines for reckless driving. Felony thresholds. Says here some states might consider it a felony if caused property damage exceeding a certain dollar amount, or if it occurred in a construction or school zone. Which, yeah, I think it was construction there, right? Because it had the orange signs up. That's crazy, this is the shit bro doesn't even think about, but I'm trying to do the research for him. Jesus Christ. And states like Virginia are known for strict reckless driving laws. Florida, especially with injury, which I think that is where he is, because there were some comments implying that Arizona and New York can have serious consequences. So, yeah. And then this would be for more lenient states, and then the difference between northern and southern states, population density, accident rates, and legislative focus. Some states may simply have a more conservative or strict approach to traffic safety, right? Yeah, and you can find very strict laws in both northern states and southern states. So, in conclusion, regardless of the state, driving with the knee, no seatbelt, and hands occupied on a highway is extremely dangerous and illegal act. The driver would face severe penalties, likely including jail time, substantial fines, and a lengthy license suspension, even if no one else was harmed. If the crash had involved others, even without severe injury, the penalties would become far more severe, potentially escalating to felony charges if serious harm or death occurred, right? And then I go back to the point that he brought up. How good of a dad would he be then, if he went to jail? You know what I mean? Just saying. So let's keep going because I was curious. What would the worst case scenario be? Also, this person is African American, whereas before I just said American. And could the outcome be different with a racist or prejudiced judge? And it says let's consider worst case scenarios. So, even if no one else is killed, the worst case scenario for the driver, excluding full-blown multi-car lineup with fatalities, would involve serious injury to himself. While the airbags might offer some protection, engaging with physical activity like jewelry making with tools during a high-speed crash could lead to severe life-altering injuries, like impalement from the tools, broken bones from the impact, head trauma despite airbags due to the position of his body, and then this would result in massive medical debt and long-term physical consequences. Oh wow, look at that! If the crash caused property damage, multiple severe charges, felony reckless driving, aggravated reckless driving, felony distracted driving, failure to maintain control, leaving a lane, and then the seatbelt violation still applies. Maximum penalty for each charges would be prison time, 1 to 5 years or potentially more if some rare, very extreme cases, but probably 1 to 2 years. Exorbitant fines from 5 to 10,000 plus, as well as the court surcharges, extended license revocation, probably 5 to 10 years, community service, extensive hours, mandatory impoundment and forfeiture of his vehicle, so he can't drive anymore, sky-high insurance rates, and civil lawsuits. So obviously, wouldn't be great, would it? And then the absolute worst case with fatalities, if his actions had led to death of another person or multiple people, he would almost certainly be charged with vehicular homicide or manslaughter, which is a felony in all states. This carries penalties of many years, often 5 to 20 plus years in state prison, depending on the state's laws, the level of negligence, and the number of victims. Some states have aggravated vehicular homicide for extremely reckless acts. And then a critical and unfortunate reality of the state's criminal justice system. It says, yes, being African American could absolutely influence the outcome, and often for the worse, due to systematic racism and implicit or explicit bias. Right? So it's just something to keep in mind. And here's how. Implicit bias by law enforcement, prosecutorial discretion, pre-trial detention, bail, jury selection, sentencing disparities by judges, could be longer jail or prison sentences, higher fines, stricter probation conditions, and less leniency, as well as the public perception and media bias. While not directly a legal penalty, there's also the potential for negative public perception and disproportionate media scrutiny if the case were to gain attention, which can indirectly affect the legal process and the defendant's future. Crazy that, eh? So in essence, while the legal framework outlines penalties, the application of those laws can be significantly influenced by racial bias at every stage of the criminal justice system. Therefore, an African American man in this scenario could face a more severe outcome, including more jail or prison time, higher fines, and harsher post-release consequences compared to a similarly situated white man, even if the objective facts of their offense were identical. Just something to keep in mind, you know. And then yeah, we've kind of gone over this already, but absolute worst case scenario with casualties. This outlines the scenario here that could lead to these charges. Right here you can see it outlines the scenario, and then here are the charges. Multiple counts of vehicular homicide or manslaughter, which is a felony. Multiple counts of vehicular assault, aggravated assault, which is a felony. Felony hit and run if applicable. Felony reckless endangerment. Aggravated factors. And then some of the penalties would be state prison time with different sentences here. 4 to 15 years, 30, 40 years, 60 years. Alaska have vehicular homicide that can lead up to 99 years in prison, depending on the degree of risk and awareness. Yeah, Tennessee lists 8 to 60 years. Ohio can be up to 15 for aggravated vehicular manslaughter, but with multiple victims and prior convictions, it could be much higher. Which he said he has a clean record, so it wouldn't be past convictions affecting it, right? And then life sentence, massive fines, permanent driver's license revocation, possibility for no parole or extended parole ineligibility, and finally civil lawsuits. And it also looked at the influence of race or prejudice in the scenario, right? Heightened scrutiny and media attention, aggressive prosecution, harsher sentencing recommendations, judicial bias, implicit or explicit, refusal for bail, unfavorable ruling imposing maximum sentencing, stacking sentences, jury bias, and disparate applications of aggravating factors, right? In summary, in a worst-case scenario with casualties, the American man would be looking at decades in state prison, potentially a life sentence, and massive financial ruin. The added layer of racial bias means that an African American individual in this situation faces a significantly higher risk of experiencing the absolute maximum penalties, being denied favorable legal options, and enduring the full, unmitigated severity of the justice system due to systematic inequalities. But I kept going here and I said I'm thinking of making a video calling out the behavior. How would you summarize the conversation up to this point? And then I continued here, right? I said I would also like to talk about the comments and our direct messages where he justifies it with egotistical and arrogant reasons like I have experience or I'm just living my life, as well as other things like that. He also tried to brag about the fact that he lives off-grid and helped deliver his child, but I think this reinforces the arrogant and egotistical nature of this video. It shows how he's childish for not only doing it in the first place, but showing it on social media and trying to defend his actions instead of taking accountability, right? What do you think? How should I go about this? And here's what it says. So, it says you've hit on a critical point about why people share and defend such dangerous behavior online, and your assessment is spot on. His justification of I have experience, I'm just living my life, and help deliver my child don't just reinforce his ego, they demonstrate a profound lack of judgment, responsibility, and understanding of the risks involved. Here's why his justifications are problematic and how you might address them in the video, right? So, ignorance of risk versus skill. Driving is not like video games where experience makes you immune to real-world physics. Sudden road hazards, potholes, debris, another driver swerving, or mechanical failures. Experience only means you've been lucky so far. No amount of experience makes driving with your knee, hands occupied, and no seatbelt safe, especially on a highway. It's fundamental misunderstanding of risk assessment. Egotistical delusions of control. It implies he believes he has Superman control over his vehicle and environment, which is simply not true for any human. It is ego talking, not a rational mind. The excuse, living my life as an excuse for recklessness. It's a self-centered justification that completely dismisses the potential harm to others and the legal consequences. His life could end or permanently alter the lives of innocent people. And then you can see how bragging about living off-grid and helping deliver his child is irrelevant and distracting, reinforces egotism, highlights irresponsibility, childness, and lack of accountability. And then the last thing I asked here was talking about how it seems like a persona, like I was talking about before, and this seems more like his real self, right? So you can see my prompt here. You can pause to read it if you want. And it says you've raised some profound insights and points about the contrast between his content and this specific behavior, how it might reflect deeper personality traits and societal influences. Let's unpack this. And it's also key to know that I said, how does this play perfectly into the idea of pathocracy and how do people in power manipulate the system and society to make people adapt or show more of those negative traits to advance or move up in the world, right? So it says you've raised some profound and insightful points about the contrast between his content and the specific behavior, and how it might reflect deeper personality traits and societal influence. Let's unpack it. I'll let people pause and read through if they want. There's the cognitive dissonance that I was talking about earlier, how this shows narcissistic, psychopathic, and vain behavior, grandiose sense of self, need of admiration, validation, lack of empathy or superficial empathy, exploitative nature of himself or others, childishness, or a lack of accountability. Again, lack of empathy, impulsivity and irresponsibility, grandiosity, superficial charm or manipulativeness, thrill-seeking or risk-taking, excessive pride in self-actions, concerned with image and perception, and superficiality. And going further here, the concept of pathocracy, coined by Polish psychiatrist Andrzej Lobachevsky, describes a system of governance or society where power is held by pathological elites and their distorted values permeate society, forcing normal people to adapt or exhibit similar traits to survive or succeed. While this individual is not a person in power, in the governmental sense, his behavior perfectly illustrates the microcosm of pathocratic influence at a societal level. Talking about normalizing a pathological behavior, his video, if it gets enough likes or shares, contributes to a culture where extreme risk-taking for content or ego is celebrated rather than condemned. Manipulation of positive ideologies. The contract with the love and abundance is crucial. This is how pathocracy can masquerade under seemingly positive or spiritual ideologies. He is using positive messaging as a veneer, while his actions demonstrate the opposite of true abundance or positive vibes. This reflects how people in power might manipulate systems and lofty ideals for their own pathological ends. Or pressure to adapt and mimic. In society where attention and clout are highly valued, people might feel pressure to adopt similar risk-taking, attention-seeking behaviors to advance or move up in the social media world. They might mimic the fearlessness without understanding the underlying pathology or consequences. This creates a feedback loop where dangerous behavior is rewarded with engagement. Let's keep going here. Erosion of empathy and accountability. When people like him gain attention and defend their actions with "I'm just living my life," it contributes to a broader societal erosion of empathy and accountability. It suggests that individual desires trump collective safety and that the rules don't apply if you're talented or on the grind. This is a hallmark of a pathocratic environment while self-interest outweighs genuine moral concern. And then, show me, don't tell me, or do as I say, not as I do. His actions speak louder than his love and abundance content. This shows how individuals with these traits might be adept at presenting a palatable facade, but their true nature, the difference between what they're saying and showing, emerges in their actions, especially when they feel confident enough to reveal it. And then I think this is well written, so I'll read this. This isn't just about one person's reckless driving. When someone promotes love and abundance, yes, yet risks lives for a viral video and then defends it with ego-driven nonsense, it shows a dangerous disconnect. It speaks to a deeper issue, the way that certain personality traits like narcissism and even psychopathic tendencies can thrive in modern society, especially online. The constant need for attention, the inflated self-belief, the casual disregard for safety, these aren't just personal flaws. They reflect a subtle societal pressure to perform, to be fearless, or get clout at any cost. This is how a kind of pathocracy can take root at a grassroots level, where people feel they need to adopt these very negative, self-serving traits to advance or to be seen as more successful, even if it means sacrificing basic human empathy and responsibility. It's time to recognize that genuine positive vibes don't come from endangering others, they come from accountability, empathy, and responsible actions. So now that we've gone over all of that, what do you think? Do you think it's possible that this guy will ever acknowledge and take accountability for his actions? Or do you think he's going to continue to stay ignorant and egotistical for the rest of his life? Hopefully, this video helps him grow and mature a little bit, you know? But let this be a lesson that it is more important to call out shitty behavior than to just stand idly by and let it happen. It's the exact same thing with bullying, right? If you're standing by and watching but not doing anything to stop it, you are complicit, you know? But yeah, let me know what you think. Am I overreacting to this guy's video he posted on Instagram? Or does this genuinely make sense to be upset about? I want to hear your opinion. And at the end of the day, this is just how I go about living my life and calling out bullshit behavior when I see it, you know? Same thing that I did with Bird a Proud Dad, but I do still want to re-record that video to do it better and to truly stick it to him, but you know, that's me using my ego to get back at these people who are just giving me ego, and you know, at least I can be honest and take accountability about that, right? But yeah, that being said, I think I'll leave this video here for now. If you enjoyed, make sure you drop a like and a comment, and while you're down there, you might as well subscribe to help us build the community and grow, because our next goal is 100 subscribers, so help us hit that and grow the family. And like I say in all my videos, I love you, stay safe, good luck, and take it easy.